начинается.
Hey folks, this is Picohan on the North American server, and this is the Farragut in sub-battles in patch 9.4. The map is Neighbors, and it's Domination, and I'm mostly recording this particular game just to have some documentation on what this limited time game mode looked like with the subs in their current state of development. Now, I said previously that I like using the Farragut in PvE modes, like Operations, because I think the strengths of the Farragut are magnified against bots. And for most practical purposes, sub-battles has devolved at this point into a PvE game mode. Nobody wants to play like heavy cruisers or battleships since they can't do anything against the subs. Only specific light cruisers and destroyers have depth charges. As such, if you looked at the loading screen, basically half the team is bots, and I'm basically going to play it like I'm facing bots for the most part. Now, Wargaming does have some settings they can tweak with the bots. They do have smarter and dumber bots. In Operations, like in Raptor, if you fight the Minakaze or the Mitsuki in the middle of the map, they will do some wily things like launch their torps and go back and smoke. And I thought that the bots in sub-battles were supposed to be the smarter bots, but as far as I can tell from playing, they're not. They're mostly the co-op, just YOLO and charge bots. So I'm just going to smoke up here, kind of off to the side on this flank, and just try to farm whatever's coming into range, since the bots are basically just going to push into range. Now, the thing that you have to be careful of with the subs is that they can get super close without getting detected. Usually in a situation like this, with a lot of people around you, if another destroyer wants to get close, they'll be detected like 5 or 6 kilometers away, something like that. But a sub can approach to something like 2 or 3 kilometers before it gets spotted, so he can sneak up very close to your smoke, get into your smoke bloom range, and then basically screw you out of it. And that's dangerous. If you look carefully, you can see the S1 torping the friendly bot Leander. He wasn't spotted till he was basically on top of the guy. The worst part is, if they detect you and you have to leave your smoke, well, now they can see you at your normal detection range, and you can't see them until the 2 or 3 kilometers. So the detection asymmetry is really big, and in my opinion, this is the biggest strength of the subs. It's not the torp citadeling or whatever. Now, while I've been here, I've been shooting at a mix of the closest thing, the easiest thing to hit, and the easiest thing to kill. Typically, the easiest thing to kill are the bots, because they're the not smart ones. And in a typical sub-battle game, or even any hybrid PvE sort of game like low-tier randoms now, what usually happens is that both teams will get rid of all the bots, and then you're left with the human players duking it out with each other. If you try to shoot at the humans first, and it takes a long time to kill them, while they're killing your bots, well, then you end up with the situation where both teams have the same number of humans, and one team has slightly lower health humans, but a ton of extra bots, and that's not good for your team. Now, of course, the bots will lend a hand in killing off each other. As anyone who plays co-op regularly knows, the bots love to ram each other. So there's that as well. So here's a trick that's sometimes useful in randoms too. Nominally, the Farragut can't stealth torp, but if something is coming toward you, you can launch your torps when you're out of detection, and the enemy will run into them. Now, of course, there's always the chance that the enemy can change direction or whatever, but that's the case with normal torps as well. I was only spotted by the bot Buddioni because I started firing, not because I was actually in the torp range, and you can see that those torps hit. Now, I'm trying to get over to the enemy S1 so I can depth charge him, since he was being spotted by the friendly sub, but the friendly sub dies and I don't have any vision of the S1 anymore. And this is a really annoying thing about the subs, and it's kind of like this for carriers as well. Now, I can't go and push this guy because while I'm approaching him, he's going to spot for the Warspite, and there's nothing I can do about that. Like, I have to get rid of the Warspite first before I can engage the sub. And this is the same kind of thing with carriers, where the carrier can spot you with his planes, and you basically can't do anything about it. Surface ships, like destroyers with different detection ranges, can kind of do that, but usually it's such a small delta that you can run away from the other destroyer fairly easily. But with the subs, they have such a big difference between their spotting range and your spotting range, it can be hard to escape even though the subs go really slowly. And they can both attack you as well, although, to be fair, it's much easier, at least in this implementation, it's much easier even for like battleships to avoid sub-torps than it is to avoid carrier planes. Now, I've retreated from the Warspite because he's basically too healthy for me to do anything aggressive, and the smoke hasn't come up until now. This guy is a human player, but since he's basically the only thing that can shoot me, I'm going to try to farm him from max range. The Farragut has super slow shell arcs, and it takes a super long time for them to get anywhere at this range, but the Warspite's also very slow, so it's not that hard to hit, especially since he's kind of straight lining. Like I said before, one of the big strengths of the Farragut is the DPM, assuming you can get it on target. And this is one of those cases where you can get those shells on target at range. Now, in the meantime, you saw that the message popped up that a bearing was being taken on the sub. And that means the sub has hit you with his pinger. I believe the way it works is that if he gets one ping, his torp will start to home, and if he gets 2 pings, then his torps will bypass the citadel protection. Now, of course, for the Farragut, that doesn't matter. Nonetheless, since there were no surface ships nearby, and the ping notification tells you which direction the sub is in, I just went and YOLO'd that sub and depth charged the shit out of him. Now, it was fairly easy to depth charge that guy because he was kind of stuck. But if a sub is actively maneuvering, and especially actively maneuvering away from you, it's not that easy. Even though the sub is fairly slow at 20 knots, if you go a max of 35, you're only closing on him at a speed of about 15 knots. And it takes a lot longer than you think to chase down a sub, especially since you need to get within about a kilometer before your depth charges start to do anything. In the meantime, that Horsebite tried to take some pot shots, but he had already gotten farmed so much by the rest of my team that I was able to take him out in fairly short order. Looking at the game, all this while, it's basically come down to our 4 humans versus their 3 humans, so I think we're going to lose the Buddioni in short order. Now, like I said, I mostly want to deal with the surface ships before dealing with the sub, but I am spotted here and pinged, and the ping indication shows that the sub is super close. So I'm going to try to rush for it and use the depth charges, especially since the Vasterus is running away. All this time, by the way, I haven't seen the sub at all. I'm basically just going off the ping indicator. And so, in some ways, doing the ping is very dangerous for the sub if you're nearby. I only got a couple hits, and I could see the ping indicator trailing off in a direction that I was not going, so I kind of thought I didn't have him, but he must have been low health and eventually burned out from the depth charges. So now it's a 3v2, and ideally I want to try to find a place to take on the Vasterus. I have more health and more DPM than him, and if I can just catch him in a disadvantaged position, it should be game over really fast. That being said, the Vasterus drops off, and it looks like he's going to keep running, so I probably have to take the fight with the Fuso first if this guy doesn't pop back up, not running away. Since he's running away and my shell ballistics are very bad, I basically don't think I can hit him, and so I'm not even going to try at this point. Do note that we do have the ship advantage, and while not a cap advantage, same caps, with a point advantage, so technically we don't need to do anything, and we should be letting them come to us, but this is a random team, and this is sub-battles, so whatever. Now, with the Fuso, I was originally kind of trying to do the stealth torp trick, but he got too close, too fast, so I just launched the torps at when I was detected, turned out, smoked up, and started farming. At these ranges again, against the slow battleship, the Farragut has more than enough shell velocity to land hits, even though since it's a Fuso, your pen damage isn't going to be great, and you basically have to rely on setting fires. Also, since he was running away, the torps that I shot within my spotting distance and within the torping distance timed out because he left the effective range of those torps. One more thing to note here is that in the sub-battles, since it was a pure tier 6 game mode. There's no radar, and smoke is stronger than it would be in randoms because of that. And it's very much like playing Ops, which is why I like using this ship. Some people like using the Badioni or the Leander, but I felt that the Farragut gave the most flexibility overall. Nothing really going on here now. I've got some permafire sticking on the Fuso, and he's basically going to burn down. The plan is to leave the smoke and go for the Vasterus. You know he's got to be somewhere to the right, but I wasn't expecting to see him just as I left the smoke. Nonetheless, since he's so close, if I can dodge his torps, it should be an easy kill, and that'll pretty much be the game. This was my most kills and highest base with the Farragut in sub-battles, so that's why I clipped this particular one. And on that note, this is the end of the video, so have a nice day.